But wait! There's more! Hang on to your seat, baby! Cause this one's a screamer!
Hey, what's up, YouTube? And welcome back to Coffee Shop Chatter. I'm Mr. Controversy, and this is where we talk about things that you may or may not hear in your local coffee shop. So before we get started, hey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and like the video. It's just to get into the algorithm for other people to watch it. That's all it does. And comment at the end, especially on this one. So we had caught some flack from Saucy, because that's what I'm going to start calling him now, from Saucy former President Obama about black men. Same man who wasn't raised by a black man, have no black sons, that also had thoughts of sleeping with men. And I will drop the link for this in the description so you can look at it for yourself. But it said, you see, I make love to men daily, but in the imagination. This is from a letter that he wrote to his girlfriend back in 1982. He was 21. He wasn't no little kid. He was 21. I don't want to hear shit. He was trying to find himself, because I don't think he still did. But anyway, he even said, I see that I have been made a man and physically in life. I choose to accept that contingency. All right. So what would lead a 20-year-old, what would formulate his mind this way? So I'm going to let the person who was sitting up on the building, 1,000 yards out, 500 yards out, and took that shot and got the information. So I'm going to let the exposing chief, Miss Candace Owens, go and take this over.
Look, I don't know if I am the only person in the world who didn't know this. I can't imagine how I didn't know this. I mean, actually, I can. The mainstream media doesn't do its job. But I was getting all these emails. People were furious with me when I said, like, I didn't believe that Michelle Obama was trans. I just never looked into it. There was nothing that totally different from the Emmanuel Brigitte Macron thing, where like this journalist for 3 years while being harassed by the French Secret Service dug into the past, produced the documents, proved that Brigitte Macron lived as a man. And I just don't remember that being a thing. And then people were going, well, what about his trans nanny? And I'm going, what conspiracy is this? And then they start sending me like mainstream media having covered this. And I'm going, what have I been under a rock? Barack Obama had a trans nanny growing up. Okay, so back in 2012, the Associated Press interviewed Evie. This is Evie, by the way, not dressed as a woman, but Evie, whatever. Let's just throw it to a clip and let you watch.
66-year-old Evie walks the streets of her Indonesian slum. She lives in a tiny room, subsisting on money she earns from washing clothes. Evie's meager existence belies a startling truth. She was once nanny to President Barack Obama. Evie says she's always been proud that the person she cared for, drove to school, and cooked for ended up being #1 in the world. The future president was just 8 years old at the time. In the late 1960s, his mother, Ann Dunham, married her second husband and moved to Indonesia. Dunham was impressed by Evie's cooking ability and offered her a job. For 2 years, Evie lived with Obama and his family in this Jakarta home, but she thinks the young Obama didn't know one fundamental truth about her. Born a man, Evie identifies as a woman. Evie says Ann Dunham might have known she was transgendered, but she never dressed as a woman in front of young Barry. And it was a time of brutal dictatorship, when soldiers would beat and round up so-called banshees. Evie says soldiers once shaved off her long black hair and burned her with lit cigarettes. Even today, transgendered people have a difficult time in this largely Muslim nation of 240 million people. This representative of an influential Islamic group says transgendered people are wrong, and they deny the teachings of Islam. And so, Evie has struggled through life, saying she's never found suitable work since Obama and his family left the country in the early 1970s, but she says Obama's election gave her a reason to feel proud for the first time in a long time.
Okay, so elsewhere in the AP's investigation, Evie said this. This is, again, directly from the AP article. He was so young, that's referring to Barry Soetoro, and I never let him see me wearing women's clothes, but he did see me trying on his mother's lipstick sometimes. That used to really crack him up. Then, elsewhere in the piece, they confirm that neighbors of Barry Soetoro and Dunham dispute Evie's claims and say that Evie wasn't just wearing lipstick, but did in fact leave the house wearing female clothes. Here is a photo of Evie, by the way, fully dressed up. I'm speechless, I think. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? You know, Evie apparently was very much accepted as a transgender individual by Stanley Dunham, Barack Obama's mother, so much so that she allowed Evie to wear her lipstick, allowed Evie to be around her child wearing her lipstick. And if the neighbors are telling the truth, which I feel like they are, Evie was dressed as a woman around a young Barry Soetoro. Okay, so why am I bringing this up? Well, first and foremost, because it's insane. Secondly, because it's a little too much synergy, as I said at the top of the show, between the mysterious upbringing of Emmanuel Macron, okay, and Barack Obama. Just like, for whatever reason, they are entered into these Catholic schools when they're really young, and they have this extraordinarily close relationships with their grandparents, like Emmanuel Macron, the exact same thing. This sort of introduction to transgenderism at an incredibly young age, the entire mainstream media sort of colluding to cover their tracks. What the hell is going on? What's going on? I'm going to ask you guys, seriously, what is going on? Because it's starting to look to me like a program, like a global government program, which potentially is breeding world leaders in very disgusting ways, exposing them to things that they probably should not be exposed to when they're young. I got to be very, very careful when I'm talking about this, because we're talking about the topic of transgenderism. We're talking about Brigitte Macron, who was born a man. If you are at all shocked to hear this, just know that of all of the episodes that YouTube decided to completely remove, it was my interview with the journalist. You should go pursue that. That broke the story about Brigitte Macron. I mean, it's as legit as it gets. Like, take it to the bank. Brigitte Macron was born a man named Michel Trogneau. And I am just seeing, like I said, a little bit too much synergy between all of these leaders and their shady backgrounds, you know, their parents, these broken homes. It leads me to my recent research, which, if it was so crazy, I don't know why the media freaked out about me drawing attention to the fact that there were all of these elite sex cults and people that believed in pedophilia as sacraments. I talked about Frankism. I talked about Jacob Frank. I recommended books for people to read to learn about that, and just mysteriously how they've tried to erase this from history. And I've talked about this for a reason, because you're talking about a religious sex cult or an anti-religious sex cult that believed in breeding and incest and things of this nature. This is a fact of history. And the media got really angry when I shared the fact that this cult, this religion, Frankism, made it all the way to America. It is just an inescapable fact that Louis Brandeis, the Supreme Court justice, who blackmailed himself into the Supreme Court, used blackmail to get onto the Supreme Court, was a Frankist. It's just a fact. You can't just make that go away. What does that signal to you? What is actually happening right now? It's very challenging, I think, for a lot of people to recognize. I know people are reading the Chaos book, learning about the MK Ultra program, learning about the extent that your government will go through to lie and to issue mass psychoses and to change the way fundamentally that you think. I know it's a very challenging thing to kind of have, I guess, your fabric of reality become unwoven, but I think it's really necessary for people to come to terms with the kind of evil that we are getting close to here. Because I just can't keep thinking that this topic that keeps surrounding and following Barry Soetoro is like by accident, like, oh, I'm sorry, like bad luck. Like, people are just saying these rumors about you and about your wife. I don't know. Okay. But speaking of gender scandal, it has just recently been announced, it's just a matter of news, that Michelle Obama is hitting the road on behalf of Kamala per Politico. The vice president, Kamala, will appear with former President Barack Obama at a Thursday rally in Georgia. followed by an October 26th appearance with former First Lady Michelle Obama, according to a senior campaign official that was granted anonymity to discuss the unannounced campaign plans. The event will mark Michelle Obama's first appearance on the campaign trail for Harris.
Yeah. So this, I would say it surprised me, but it doesn't. Because if you look at the history, go back to where little girls weren't allowed to perform. So they always had little boys dress up as girls. They had teenage boys play teenage women. They had full grown men dressing up as women because at that time women were allowed to do none of that stuff. So they replaced them with men. Now you had the Epstein list. Why? I don't want nothing redacted. Why they don't put the whole list out? Because I bet you a bunch of them are sitting up there in Congress and the Senate. A bunch of them are probably a lot of the people that you run around here idolizing. Now you got this whole Diddy fiasco going on. And watch how many people won't come up out of that. Because you're not going to tell me people like Oprah, the Obamas, probably Gayle King. There was a whole lot of people, I guarantee, that went to them Diddy parties. But they ain't gonna put the list out. They're not gonna say who the people were. If Diddy even tried it, they're gonna Epstein him. Guaranteed. They're not gonna allow that man to tell who was at them parties. Because he filmed them all. The dude had cameras on his house. He was recording everything. So there's a lot of people out there that's probably panicking right now. Then you look at this child trafficking that goes on in the U.S. All these kids, hundreds of kids. Now they try to make it where pedophilia is a disease. They're trying to so it become more acceptable. Oh, he's just a little sick. But hey, none of the stuff surprised me. I look at the history of this country to include others and see how they operate with a lot of stuff. Because you can't tell me all these kids coming up missing and you having child traffic rings getting caught with 8 or 9 people and they having like 125 kids and nobody don't know what's going on. They catch you where they want to catch. It's just enough to appease the American people so you can think they're doing something. But I guarantee you a bunch of them sitting up there on the hill and up the couch, they complicit. They are part of it. Just like you have all these kids coming in now, the border's wide open, everybody coming in. They want this to happen. But hey, that's all I got. I'll just, like I say, comment. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you made it this far. Just like the content. Like I said, this pushes in the algorithm. But go ahead and comment. I want to know what you think about this whole Barrack scenario. So, this Mr. Controversy, and I'm out.